Hey guys, welcome back to Mo's Game Table. Today we're going to take a look inside War Diary issue number 21. It is the latest issue from War Diary magazine, and we're going to take a look at the digital version. We've looked at both the digital and the print version in the past, so let's take a look inside issue number 21 and see what we've got in store for us. We start off with the Prelude, which is the letter from the editor, Roy Matheson. He's going to be talking here about how they've just released Guadalcanal, the Battle for Henderson Field 1942 to 1943, which I've already covered on the channel with a preview. I will be doing another video once I've gotten enough playtime with it so I can discuss the game in more detail. And if you're interested in the classic 1966 Avalon Hill version of Guadalcanal, you'll definitely want to check out the new edition that is put out by War Diary magazine. And of note here at the bottom right, it says, in our upcoming issue 22, we will feature a very in-depth article comparing and contrasting the games The Russian Campaign and Russia Besieged by Art Lupinacci. That is going to be a really interesting article. This is the third and final installment of the Paul Commons Outstanding series on the Italian military forces during the Second World War, and designer's notes from Vance von Voorhis on his upcoming Malta game. So a lot to look forward to in the next edition, but it's going to be real interesting to see what Art has to say comparing and contrasting those two games. As anybody who knows Art knows, he's a very high energy guy, and he knows both of those games very, very well. So looking forward to that article. Next page, we get to the table of contents, and starting off with the first article, Meeting Triumph and Disaster, the Italian Campaigns in East Africa and Greece by Paul Combin. This is the second installment of the three-part look at the Italian military in World War II, which we were just talking about. Next article is The Fall of Crete, The Games by Andrew McGee, a compare and contrast look at the number of games on the invasion of Crete, 1941. Then we have Crete, The Battle by John D. Burt. This is a brief overview of the battle itself. Next up is Guadalcanal, Updating a Classic by designer Mike Nagel. He's going to talk about what he did to update that Avalon Hill Classic from 1966. It says, designer's notes for this new game from War Diary, a homage to the Avalon Hill Classic. Then we move to the East Front, Roads to Leningrad and Moscow, Konzi House Rules by Claire Konzelman. These are new house rules to facilitate play of these two Vance von Voorhis designs. Then we have The Italian Army in the Russian Campaign by Patrick Cloutier. Here, the historian looks at the Italian order of battle for this game from Compass and includes some recommended adjustments. Then we have one that I'm very interested in, Front Toward Enemy Review by Arrigo Vellaconia. An in-depth look at this title from Multiman Publishing. And this is a game that I have and I've played. I still need to play some more to kind of get a really good opinion of it, but this game kind of drives me a little nuts. I like it, and there are things about it that drive me a little crazy. So I want to see what Arrigo, what his thoughts are on this. It's going to be interesting to see someone else's point of view as well. Then we have Pass and Review. Those are capsule reviews by John Burt and Annie Nunez. So let's continue on and see what we've got here inside. We start off with a picture of Il Duce himself, Benito Mussolini, and then we get the second page, because that's a layout when you have the physical magazine. Meeting Triumph and Disaster, the Italian Campaigns in East Africa and Greece by Paul Combin. He's going to be talking about some of the games that cover this theater. We start off here, 1935-36 East Africa. Lion of Judah is covered right there. And that is the War for Ethiopia, 1935 to 1941 by Compass Games. Then we have an initial deployment of tribal forces on the Northern Front. Unless using the optional rules, the Dendkalia Desert is totally impassable. Then we move on to another game, Conquest of Ethiopia, the Italian Invasion 1935 to 1936. This is a Panzer Grenadier game by Avalanche Press. We have a couple of callouts here, Roadblock and Dongola Gorge, and Panzer Grenadier, a summary. And at the top we see 1940 to 1941, Mussolini helps pull his own noose. And Bombs and Brides, Lion of Judah. Then we have Greece 1940, The Promise and Pitfalls of Parallel War. The Italian Steamroller versus Greece. It is very late in the year. Many of the best Italian units are still in Italy. Inevitable poor weather will impair the efforts of the Italian Air Force. Then we have the endnotes, and that is the end of that article. Then we move on to The Fall of Crete, The Games by Andrew McGee. He's going to be talking about some of the games that are covering the Crete campaign itself. Air Assault on Crete, Descent on Crete, Crete 1941 by Vevictus, and then World at War magazine Battle of Crete 1941, along with Operation Mercury by GMT and Mercury by MMP. Then we have Crete the Battle by John D. Burt. He's going to give a historical perspective on the battle itself, complete with a map to follow along with. And we have an ad for Balkan Fury. Then we're up to Guadalcanal, updating a classic by Mike Nagel. He's going to give his designer's notes here as to what he did to update and upgrade the Avalon Hill Classic from 1966. That goes for a couple pages. Then we have another ad for Barbarossa, The World Will Hold Its Breath. And we get to the Roads to Leningrad and Moscow, Konzi House Rules. Claire Konzelman's going to discuss house rules that he's created for both of these games by Vance von Voorhees. Those go for a few pages. Then we get to Fortress Games, The Art of War Games, an advertisement for their games. I don't have the air games, but I do have Save South Vietnam and Save Afghanistan Comrade. Both of those are really interesting titles. If you're a fan of either of those theaters, definitely check those out. Great solitaire games from the fine folks at Fortress Games. Then we have The Italian Army and the Russian Campaign by Patrick Cloutier. That's going to discuss the Italian military in the Russian campaign game. And we have another ad for the First World War. Then we get to the review for Front Door Enemy by Arrigo Valaconia. And like I said, I'm real interested to see what Arrigo's thoughts are on this game because I think it's a really interesting game and it's got some fun things to it and some interesting aspects that it covers. And then there are some things that just kind of leave me scratching my head a little bit and a little frustrated with it. But either way, it's still a fine game if you are into tactical Vietnam era. And we have an ad for Guadalcanal, the Battle for Henderson Field, 1942 to 1943. Then we get to Pass and Review. These are the small capsule reviews. We start off with the 278th Squadron from Quarterdeck International. This is a $16 card game. Then we have Stalingrad, New Perspectives on an Epic Battle, Volume 1, The Doomed City by Christer Bergstrom. That is from Vactel Books, just published in 2022. That goes on for a little over a page, and that's by Andy Nunez. Then we have The First Victory, Glory and Empire, First Victories, Wellington versus Napoleon. That is a game coming out from Lock and Load Publishing. Then we end up at the back of the book with an ad for Legion Wargames, Skyhawk, Rolling Thunder 1966, which is now available. It just came out for CPO backers just earlier this week. They sent out the email to everybody saying, hey, come on in and purchase your game now. Because I put in for the CPO on this. It's Vietnam. I definitely have to check it out. I love modern era stuff. So looking forward to seeing that one here pretty soon. And I will be sharing a look inside the game once I receive it, which should be by the end of this week. So maybe next week we'll get a preview video up of Skyhawk Rolling Thunder 1966 by Steve Dixon and Bob Best, published by Legion Wargames. And that is a look at everything we have to look forward to inside of War Diary issue number 21, which is available now. You can get it either digital or print, and you can go to wardiarymagazine.com to place your order or to subscribe. And I strongly recommend subscribing to this magazine. I do this every time I do these videos. This is a fantastic magazine. Roy and his team do an amazing job. They really do. As you can see by looking in this magazine, it covers in depth a lot of different subjects, and it covers them from different angles. Talks about the history, talks about the games, things like that. I think it's really interesting to get different perspectives and to look at different pieces of history, and it's a great price point. And like I said, a very fine magazine, which did win a CSR award just a couple of years ago. Well, I hope that helps you guys out if you've been curious about this one. If you have any comments or questions, post them down below. Thanks for tuning in, guys. See you next time.